Back on the 15th of February, I released a For Honor to buy or not to buy video. It was based on my feelings toward the game after having played the open beta. Warthog Vanguard then left a comment asking if there was any chance I'd review the final game in that format, and also if there was anything I hated in the beta that was changed in the final game. Now, I really wanted to make this video for Warthog Vanguard, but unfortunately I was flat broke and just couldn't afford to pick up a copy. So I reached out to Ubisoft. I was upfront and honest about the whole thing. I never in a million years thought I'd hear back, but to my astonishment, they generously came to the table and provided me with a review copy. So a big thank you to Ubisoft for making this video a reality. I've had the game now about a week and really familiarised myself with it before giving this review. The game itself has been out for around a month. Now, with that said and out of the way, don't expect me to be any less critical of For Honor. I personally find it really important to tell the truth about games. Without honest criticism and feedback, developers aren't to know what gamers, like you and I, are enjoying, hating, or just generally wanting in video games. Who will like For Honor? There's two groups of people that'll be particularly taken with how this game plays. They're the hack and slash crowd, which are games that are very simple, like Shadow of Mordor, very straightforward. Or there's the more complex button mashing, button combination, button countering games, like Dead or Alive and Tekken. For Honor's kind of a cross blend of those two different styles of games. I personally love hack and slash games, and I also don't mind the occasional button combination game like Dead or Alive. So if those kind of games tickle your pickle, it might be worth checking out. Learning curve. When it comes to understanding the base fighting mechanics of For Honor, it's very quick and easy to pick up. You've got three main attacks, which are up, left, and right. On those three different positions, you can either do a counter attack, a light attack, or a heavy attack. So picking up the base gameplay mechanics are really straightforward. When it comes to the actual map and the different regions, you can deploy war assets. That means that you want to control a part of the region, which means you either need to attack or defend that part of the map. Now, that was a little bit more time consuming to pick up, but again, it's still really straightforward and simple to understand once you get the hang of it. I'd say within 2 hours, you'll be really comfortable with all different aspects of gameplay in For Honor. Character customization. Recently, when I was playing Ghost Recon Wildlands, I noticed there was an incredible amount of character customization options. For Honor is exactly the same. There are so many different options we can set. So it feels like at the moment, Ubisoft are leading the industry when it comes to in-game character customization options. I don't even genuinely care for character customization in most games, but it's hard not to be impressed and enjoy what they've done with games like For Honor and Wildlands. In For Honor, you can do all kinds of awesome things. You've got emblems, you've got engravings, you can put different colours on your characters. Each individual character has a whole bunch of unlocks that you can go through and earn. I personally like the fact that you could equip an emblem to all parts of your armour, and same as colours, you can equip certain colours and backgrounds to all parts of your armour, or just have things on individual shoulders, or on your chest piece, or on the back of the chest. It's very, very nice that they've included such a broad selection for people that are really into character customization. Also, I found the weapons and the way that you could individually change pieces of the weaponry, such as the handles, the sticks, the blades. That was a really nice addition. Going through and being able to independently upgrade each part of the weapon or armor as well to give you better stats for those pieces of equipment. It's just there's such a good range of character customization in the game. So if you're into character customization, For Honor definitely has you covered. Control scheme. In For Honor's open beta, I had a big problem with the way executions didn't follow through. Quite often you'd see the prompt for the execution, and if you moved any finger or thumb too much, it would exit the whole execution animation and it would just go to a regular kill. Now, in the actual final build, that I find feels very different. Quite often now, I find the executions follow through 90% of the time, and the 10% that they're not following through, I feel might be personal error, quite often because you're in a rush to finish killing that opponent before you try and engage with another. Usually it happens in a 2-to-1 or 3-to-1 situation that you just don't have the time to follow through and get the execution. I'm not too sure if it was me that noticed it is about 90% of the time it's following through, or if some of you guys have also had problems with it not being 100% of the time, but it's definitely something I feel they've improved immensely. It could also be the fact that I've just got better at leaving my hands the way they are until the execution has started the animation. I'm not too sure, but it definitely does seem to be a lot better than it was in the beta. The other thing I noticed with the control scheme is the chat, the in-game chat. Quite often on the Xbox One you press the left bumper, and then you might want to press X to say thank you to somebody for just reviving you. But unless you give it a little bit of time, like a little pause between holding the left bumper and pressing X, it seems not to actually do anything. Like you press left bumper and X too quickly, and it just results in nothing happening. Now I'm not too sure if that's again just me rushing it and noticing it myself, or if some of you guys have also noticed that the in-game chat still feels a little bit off, something's not 100% right there. So as far as the actual control scheme in the final build of the game, I definitely feel it has improved immensely, especially for the executions compared to what it was in the beta. User interface. I notice a big problem when you're trying to run around and engage with an enemy. Often the camera's zooming in or zooming out, so your camera's getting closer or further away from the screen. This results in the stamina bar and the health bar to your character bouncing all over the screen. Quite often it's very far away and it's in the top left, or then as it zooms out it gets closer. It's just a very hard thing to keep track of. I notice a lot of the time, especially with the heavy characters, you're always running out of stamina, and instead of just being able to immediately glance to a corner of the screen and immediately see how much stamina you've got, you're kind of having to roughly look around where the stamina bar is to see the tiny little bar and that it's either empty or full. This is very frustrating, especially when you're trying to engage with an enemy like 1v1 and you don't know if they, have stamina or if it's a good time to strike. You're trying to watch what they're doing as well as, make a counter attack or try and make some sort of attack, but you've got to base that off a moving stamina bar that's just very hard to keep focus of. The same kind of thing applies to the health bar with that. I'd like to see them find a permanent position on the screen. The other big thing I noticed with the user interface is the actual in-game prompts or in-game selection for when you need to block a move. I really am not a fan of this at all. If you are attacking somebody with an attack from above, on their screen they're getting a prompt to say press up on the thumbstick to block the attack. Or if someone's attacking you from your right, on your screen you're getting a little red curly brace saying block the right hand side attack. I find that takes away a lot of the actual immersion of the game and just makes it so basic that anybody with a simple connection can kind of counter moves. Often it resulted in a standoff based on some sort of user interface option being there that I feel is taking away from the actual gameplay. Apart from that, the rest of the user interface I found very clean and straightforward. Menu design. I'm not a fan at all of complex menus. For Honor doesn't have one of the most complex menus, but there's still a lot happening on screen. Really all they need to have is single player, multiplayer, and then a settings option. I obviously click on the multiplayer option, and then once you're in the multiplayer you select the mode you would like to play in, and bam, away you go. However, what happens is there's daily challenges that you're meant to do, or orders as they're called in-game. When you select an order, it might say something like do a skirmish mode, but then on the actual in-game map, all you can see is 3 different options: duel, deathmatch, or dominion. So unless you actually know to go to deathmatch and then right bumper across and select the skirmish mode, it can be a little bit confusing as to what you're actually trying to play. I personally still quite often click left bumper, look at an order, want to play that mode to get the experience or to get the steel that's awarded for completing the order, and then I still have to quite often click on two of the icons on the screen and then right bumper and go, okay, that's not the one with that mode, I've got to select one of the other ones. I just felt it could be done a little bit cleaner, make it a little bit more straightforward. I also found that once you had actually started playing a game, or it was searching in the game for players, you can't do anything on that screen. It's literally a dead screen. All you can do is open the settings and look at the settings for what you're searching for. There's nothing there that actually makes me want to keep looking at that screen. Now, this is great if you play with a tablet or mobile phone or whatever close by and you can immediately look at something else. But I personally, why that screen's happening, the search screen, would love for an option to be able to customize my character. Quite often the character customization you really want to have a play with. Look at the different things, compare what your different parts of your armor and weapons are doing, maybe sell off a few things, upgrade some armor, but you can't do any of that with the way the menu's been designed. So the menu design in the game, while it's not overly complex, it definitely could use some fine-tuned tweaking just to make it a little bit more straightforward to get into different areas of the menu. Graphics. The in-game graphics with For Honor are really nicely done. It's one of the best looking games I've seen, and I really am a fan of the granular style colour settings that they've actually used. So many games these days go for that whole neon, it's got to be bright, it's got to be orange, you know, that's all well and good, but at the same time it's nice to have a good looking game that just has a very down to earth, grounded, realistic, granular feel. And For Honor really does that for me. So if you're looking for a super, neon game, For Honor is not going to do much for you. But if you're looking for a game with actual really good graphics, and I notice they're really good on small monitors and big TVs alike, then For Honor's got something that you're probably going to want to have a look at. Gameplay. In For Honor, each game will play out very differently, depending on the mode you're playing, who you're playing with, and how you're personally playing. I often play as the big, fat, slow, heavy characters. Now this results in me never being able to chase down an opponent fleeing battle. Now that's all well and good in a 1v1 because at some point they're going to run out of space or they're going to come to a stop and you'll be able to engage again. But in 4v4 and bigger modes, that actually is very detrimental to the way the game plays out. Because what happens is they run back to their group, and their group then has like 3 or 4, and that's 3 or 4 versus me who might already be on half health. I found a lot of people that are playing like that, in my opinion, are really ruining the actual gameplay. On a battlefield, if I come across you and I have a battle, somebody walks away, victorious, that's For Honor. That's actually For Honor. That's what it means. But what's happening is people have no fucking honor. People are like running around in big groups thinking that when there's 4 people killing 1 person, that's, so fantastic and honorable. It's not, and it's really killing the gameplay. Now that doesn't actually say anything about the gameplay itself when it's played as it's meant to be. I really enjoy the gameplay in a 1v1 situation. I definitely find some people, even in those 1v1 situations though, aren't honourable. They quite often do things like throwing you off the map intentionally, but then spamming that they're sorry in the in-game chat. Now, if you couldn't actually throw people off the map at such a ridiculous angle, that would be great, because I quite often find what's happening is you're at an angle like 30 degrees or something that you literally wouldn't fall off, or the character's so far from the edge but they stumble backwards just to fall off the edge. That's very frustrating to the gameplay, and I find actually ruins it. As the character I was playing with, I literally could start just running, sprinting, and then press my button to like sprint super fast or whatever that move is called, and the character would just immediately fall off the edge. I did that both versus bots and real players. Versus real players, I got a double kill with it, based on like people being able to fall off the edge. That wasn't honourable at all, but in that case it was a 2v1 situation and I used what I could. But that's what I'm trying to get at. There's things in the game that if everyone played it honourably and in a 1v1 situation, just because they're a fast, agile character, they spam things like, let's grab you and throw you to the ground 3 or 4 times, and let's do it again when you stand back up. That is very detrimental and not actually having what you call a duel in the game. It also doesn't help that you can see where people are attacking from. So, for example, again, the big heavy characters, they're very slow. Their opponents shouldn't be able to see which angle or whatever they're attacking you from. They should have to base that off the body movement of the character. I'd like to see something done in For Honor 2 that actually hides that a little bit better, because it's so easy to see, okay, they're attacking me from up, I just need to block up. It really takes away improvisation from the actual battles. So, apart from that aspect of the gameplay where people are ruining it themselves, the only other thing I really noticed was still the limited amount of attacks, combinations, and actual in-game executions. Each character has what I believe to be 4 executions. One of the executions you can unlock for 7,000 steel, and the other one is 5,000. And that gives you a total of 4. So it's still very limited as to the number of actual executions you've got, and they're very expensive to buy. A week's worth of game time, and you might just be able to afford the $7,000 execution. So, as far as the gameplay itself, I'd definitely like to see more attacks and combinations and executions across the board. I'd really, though, love to see people stop playing it in big groups and just start playing with honour, because that is how I feel the game really shines at its best. Improvements they could make. I'm gonna leave improvements to another video, but there's a couple of improvements they could make that are very noticeable and I think most people will come across. The really big one is the networking. I've been told that the networking in the game is peer-to-peer. There are no actual servers. I haven't confirmed whether this is in fact actually correct, but it definitely feels that way. Half the time you're playing a 1v1 and there's no networking problems at all. If you're playing 2v2, there doesn't appear to be networking problems. But the second you start playing like 4v4, what happens is one person has a problem connecting, or somebody tries connecting from another region in the world, and immediately somebody gets dropped, the game times out, and it just disconnects. I noticed this so many times, and it was very frustrating, especially sometimes when you're fighting like in a 3v1 and you're winning, or it appears to feel like you're winning, and then disconnected. It's very frustrating. Sometimes it felt like you spent 5 minutes searching for a game, and then it would still actually disconnect before the game started, which meant there was 5 minutes down the toilet. Other times you could be 10 minutes into a game and then it would disconnect. So I think based on the networking in the game the way it is, and what feels like some people are still using shit like lag switches to sort of, you know, tamper with the connection, it just feels that some people are a little bit, you know, ahead of where you actually see them to be. So I definitely feel there's a host advantage, and something with the networking is wrong, and I'd love to see actual real For Honor servers that don't rely on somebody's potato internet connection or somebody's perfect internet connection that limits everybody else's receiving the packets from them. The other big one that hasn't changed from the beta, or doesn't feel like it's changed at all, is the time between rounds in like a duel situation is still so long. It could be at least half of what it is, maybe even a third. What happens is you finish the round, and then immediately you've got all this bonus time. Sure, you can do like one little victory animation, but you can actually do 2 or 3 victory animations. And that really doesn't need to be there. It just sort of delays you from playing the next round. It's just watching animations. And it wouldn't be so bad if the game just immediately started the next round, but it doesn't. It sort of does another opening intro animation before it starts the round. I really like the opening intro animation. It's fine. I just like the empty time at the end of the round to be clipped, at least of half what it is now. The other improvements I'll leave to another video. Things I liked. I really enjoyed a few things in the game. One of them is the pre-game animation. I really liked seeing your whole team lined up and then having that little loading pause, and then as the game's ready to load they all swing in. It just felt like you're part of the team against their team and you're really about to have an awesome battle. I really like that animation. Don't ask me why, it's such a simple thing, but it's something I feel they've done really well. One of the other big things I really enjoyed, not that I personally used it, but I really like the fact they included men and women as certain characters. In the actual beta I noticed there were a lot of female characters, and in the actual final game I noticed that too. And then I read that you can actually select man or woman for a lot of characters that are available. Sure, not all characters have men and women options, but definitely they're there, so if you're a person that really likes choosing your gender or choosing, you know, whatever you want to call that in this PC world, that's fantastic, and I like the fact that they've thought to include something like that, so it's not just every character is the same, there's options available. The other one that I'm a huge fan of, and again, it's just because it feels so awesome, is doing an execution in the game. I know I've said there could be more executions, but just with the executions that are there, finishing somebody off, it doesn't matter what century it is with like a mace to the head or whatever, you know, it's just an awesome feeling. Like, you've completely shattered their hopes and dreams, you've destroyed the shit out of them. That's a really awesome feeling, and I think in this game they've made it feel very, very nice to do. So they're three of the big things I really enjoyed about For Honor. Would I buy it? 100% yes. Ubisoft, as I made you guys aware at the start of the video, was so generous in sending me out a review copy, and I'm eternally grateful and in their debt. Without them I wouldn't have been able to make this video. However, at the same time, when I've got money sitting around, I will definitely be picking up a copy of this game for myself and for a couple of friends, because this is one of those games that I feel in 6 months' time, 12 months' time, we'll still be playing. The seasons in the game last for many, many months. Each round lasts for 14 days. Each season is obviously 5 rounds per season. So the game's not made to be an overnight success. It's not made to be gone in, you know, tomorrow. It's made to be around for a long time. I can see them putting a lot of support into the game. Sure, there's definitely things I think they could add in, like a decent networking solution, but at the same time, if you're playing this with people that you know and neither of you are tampering or cheating with the connection, there's not going to be any issue. Even if you're playing this with the occasional people that are doing that, it's not really going to be an issue long term for you playing the actual game. It's not going to have any long term effect, that's one game. So there's definitely things in the game I really, really like, and there's definitely things in the game that I still think need fixing. But based on the gameplay itself, it's very, very fun and very, very enjoyable to do. I'm looking forward to going through the campaign, because a lot of people have been saying, what's the campaign like? I'm personally not really into single players and campaigns anymore. I'm pretty much solid multiplayer. That's where I think gaming is going, and gaming has been for a long time. But at the same time, I'm looking forward to the campaign just because, again, it's more of that fun, awesome gameplay that I've enjoyed in the multiplayer. And I'm sure they've done some awesome cinematics. Just the opening cinematic was absolutely mind-blowing. So I'm really looking forward to that. And yeah, would I buy it? 100% yes, and I definitely, again, will be picking up a copy when I've got the money to, just because I really want to see a second For Honor, and I'm really about supporting developers that have made something different. They've taken away the whole shooting element of the game, and they've made a multiplayer game based on hack and slash, based on button combinations, and I think there's so many things they could do that would be awesome for a sequel, and I'd really like to see that eventuate. So if you've got the money there and you're looking at a couple of games, I'd highly recommend going and picking up a copy of For Honor at some point, just because I personally really enjoy the gameplay. Hopefully you guys can see I've been upfront and honest about the review copy from Ubisoft, and I've tried not to put any bias about that review copy into this review. It's based on my experience with the game as it is, a month down the track, and after having played a week of the gameplay. Again, I will be putting an improvements video out on improvements I'd like to see in For Honor made. Hopefully it's helped some of you make a decision as to whether it's worth picking up a copy or not. If there's a question about For Honor or a video on For Honor that you'd like to see made, let me know in the comments. I'd be more than happy to make it for you. And again, big thanks to Ubisoft for making this video happen. As always, if you've got feedback on the video itself, I'd love to know, because I'm still learning about YouTube myself. And it'd be awesome to know what you guys are enjoying and not enjoying. So let me know in the comments. And if you haven't already subscribed and are enjoying what I'm doing, let me know what I need to do to get you to subscribe. But at the same time, if I'm not your cup of tea, I'm not going to beg you to subscribe either. I am literally just about the content. So either way, thanks for watching the video. I'll catch you next time.